Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be diving into a topic that's like totally everywhere these days.
It really,
Social media.
yeah.
We're going to unpack how it's changing us like in this digital world.
Right.
Everything from how we act and how it affects our mental health to,
Yeah.
our relationships and even like our sense of ourselves.
It's really interesting how social media is this like double-edged sword, you know? We're always connected, like sharing stuff and making these online communities, but then there's this whole other side we got to like understand.
Exactly. To help us figure all this out, we've got all this cool research.
Oh, yeah.
We've got like academic papers about the psychology of being on social media. And then we've got articles about like body image and being addicted to tech and even this awesome lecture by a professor of mental health counseling.
Wow.
So it's going to be like a crash course on how social media and like why you are connected.
Yeah. One of the biggest things from all this research, especially this paper called Effects of Social Media Use on Psychological Well-Being, is that how social media affects you isn't just about how long you're online.
Huh.
It's more about like how you're using it and what you're actually doing online.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess it's not just about like scrolling forever,
Mm.
you know. It's about like using it with a purpose.
Exactly.
It's like I remember this one time I went down this total Instagram rabbit hole and I was like comparing my life to everyone else's perfect vacations and all the stuff they were accomplishing.
Ah.
I ended up feeling super anxious and like I wasn't good enough just because of these like little squares on my phone.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
And it really shows this idea of social comparison, which we'll talk about more later.
Okay.
But you know what's really interesting is that because of what you just said, social media has kind of changed this fear of missing out or FOMO
Right.
into like a fear of being left out or FOBLO.
So below, okay. I
Yeah.
don't get it.
Okay, so think about it. When everyone's online all the time and sharing their lives, it's not just about missing one thing anymore.
I guess so.
It's like you're not part of what's happening online, like you're not in the cool group.
Whoa, that's like a whole other level of pressure. Like, how does all this being connected affect our relationships and if we feel like we belong? Oh, and for all the parents listening, we'll be talking about how all this affects teenagers too.
Definitely we'll be looking at how the online world shapes how young people see themselves, especially kids who've grown up with the social media their whole lives.
But before we get to that, let's talk about this whole idea of social media mindsets.
Okay.
Because it seems like that's the key to like using social media in a way that's good for us.
This research on social media mindsets is like a game changer, you know? It says that what we believe about social media, like if we feel in control or controlled by it,
Mm-hmm.
that really affects our mental health and how we experience these platforms.
So it's not just about what we do on social media, but like how we think about it. Well,
Exactly. And the research found these two big parts of our social media mindsets: agency and valence.
okay.
Agency is like how much control you feel you have over using social media, and valence is like your overall opinion of social media. Is it good or bad in your life?
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So like if I'm getting this, someone with high agency, they see social media as something they can use to get what they want.
Right.
But someone with low agency feels like social media is using them. It's
Yeah.
kind of like the difference between being the driver and the passenger.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the research says that these mindsets really change how we act and what happens to us on social media. Someone with like high agency and a positive mindset might use social media to like build their business or find people who are into the same stuff or even like share their art.
Right.
And they feel good about it, you
Eh.
know?
But then someone with low agency and a negative mindset, they might just keep scrolling and comparing themselves to everyone else and feel more and more anxious or depressed. It's like social media makes them stressed instead of helping them connect.
Yeah. And that brings us to something really important to remember.
What's that?
If you want to use these platforms in a way that's good for you, you got to have a healthy mindset about social media.
Okay, so that's how we think about social media. But let's switch gears a little
Sure.
and talk about why we share things online.
Okay.
This article, The Psychology of How and Why We Share on Social Media, breaks down all the reasons we share stuff.
It's interesting stuff.
Like, is it all about bragging or wanting people to like us?
Well, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
The article talks about this old research on word-of-mouth advertising by Ernest Dichter,
Oh,
and he found 4 main reasons why people share things:
okay, what are they?
product involvement, self-involvement, other involvement, and message involvement.
Whoa. Okay, what does all that even mean when we're talking about social media?
So let's say you share like a super funny video with your friends, right? It could be because of product involvement, like the video itself was just so good you had to share the fun, or it could be self-involvement, like sharing that video makes you feel cool and like you're on top of things.
Ooh, I definitely do that, especially with those cute animal videos. You
Yeah,
just got to share the cuteness with everyone.
I get it. And then there's other involvement, which is like you really want to help your friends or tell them something you know. Maybe you share an article about a cause you care about or a recipe you think they'd like. And lastly, there's message involvement. That's when you share something because you think it's really important or means something to you.
Okay.
Like maybe a political post or a news article or even a personal story that goes along with what you believe in.
So it's not just about showing off. It's about connecting and being nice and even like being an activist.
Yeah, it's like we're always trying to figure out how our own wants and what we feel responsible for as a person work together.
Yeah, and that's got to be even harder in the digital world where everything we share becomes part of who we are online.
That's a good point. The article also talks about Jonah Berger's 6 principles of contagious content and how our emotions make us share things. His quote, "When we care, we share," is so true.
Yeah, think about all those viral videos or articles that made you laugh or cry or get mad.
Right?
We share those because they make us feel something strongly.
Exactly. Berger found that stuff that's positive and exciting is shared more, but so are stories that make us feel strong emotions even if they're negative.
Speaking of stories, I remember this video of a tiny hamster eating tiny burritos. It was so cute and funny that I had to share it with everyone I knew.
That's a great example of how being funny and cute can make something go viral. But let's move on to something super important in our digital world.
Okay.
How social media affects teenagers. This lecture from the NSU College of Psychology gives us some insights and some honestly kind of scary stats about the challenges Gen Z faces.
Right.
You know, they've grown up with social media being everywhere.
I think a lot of parents are worried about this. The lecture talked about a big increase in mental health problems in young people, like depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts.
It's true.
And this happened at the same time smartphones and social media got big.
Yeah, those numbers are definitely worrying. But we have to remember that just because two things happen at the same time doesn't mean one caused the other.
Okay.
Just because these things are happening together doesn't mean social media is the only bad guy. There's other stuff going on too, like pressure at school, money worries, and even global things like the pandemic. All of that makes young people feel uncertain and stressed.
Yeah, that's true. The lecturer did say it's hard to tell exactly how much social media is to blame because there's nothing to compare it to like a world without the internet.
Right.
But what's happening is clear, and we can't ignore the possible risks.
One of the main problems the lecture talks about is how social media affects how young people see themselves. They're always seeing perfect online personalities and these impossible beauty standards, so they feel like they have to show everyone this perfect version of themselves online,
Right.
and that can make them feel bad about themselves, and like who they really are inside doesn't match the person they feel like they have to be online.
It's like they're always comparing themselves to these fake ideal versions of other people.
Yeah.
And that's really bad for their self-esteem.
Right.
Then there's cyberbullying, which is way worse on social media because mean comments and rumors can spread so fast.
Yeah. When you're online and not face to face, it's easier to say things you'd never say to someone in person. And the bad stuff stays online forever, so it can hurt people for a long time.
It's so sad to think about how all this affects young people's mental health and well-being.
Yeah.
And it's not just cyberbullying. Being online all the time and seeing so much negative news and arguments can make you anxious, hopeless, and even scared. So it feels like we're walking on eggshells with this stuff, trying to enjoy being connected, but also like protect our mental health, especially for kids and teenagers. So what can we actually do? Should we like chuck our phones in the ocean and go live in a cave?
Well, going off the grid might sound kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's not really possible for most of us,
Yeah.
you know? Social media is such a big part of our lives, and it can be really good for connecting and learning and even like making a difference in the world. Like
Yeah.
we were saying, it's about finding that balance and having a healthy relationship with social media.
So how do we do that? How do we like use the good parts of social media without getting sucked into all the bad stuff?
This article from Take Root Therapy has some good advice on how to have a healthier relationship with social media. It starts with being aware of how you're using it now, you know? Like ask yourself, what are you getting out of being on social media? And what are you maybe giving up? Is it making your life better or is it making you more stressed?
That's a good point. We just like scroll and like stuff without thinking about what it's doing to us.
Exactly. The article also says it's important to set boundaries and be more intentional with how you use social media.
Huh.
Maybe that means setting a timer for how long you're on social media or turning off notifications so you're not distracted all the time. Or you could even just follow accounts that inspire you and match what you care about.
I like that idea of following accounts that are good for you. It's like you're making your own little online world that you enjoy instead of just letting the algorithm decide what you see.
Totally. And remember, it's okay to unfollow or mute accounts that make you feel bad or show these like unrealistic perfect bodies. You get to choose what you see and interact with online.
So it's about taking back control of your experience online.
Right, exactly. This article from Impossible Psychological Services also talks about how important it is to be kind to yourself. It's easy to compare ourselves to other people and try to be perfect, especially when everyone's showing off their best selves on social media. But remember, nobody's life is actually perfect, and it's our differences that make us special.
That's a good reminder. And it's not just about being nice to ourselves. It's about making the whole online world nicer. You know,
I agree.
there's a real person behind every profile picture, and what we say matters. Let's try to use our words to help people, not hurt them.
I like that a lot.
Well, that feels like a good place to wrap things up.
It does.
As we finish this deep dive, we want you to think about your own relationship with social media, what you learned today, the problems you've had, and what you can do to have a better, happier experience online.
Remember, this is just the start of the conversation. Social media is always changing, so it's super important to stay informed and think critically.
Right.
We hope this deep dive gave you some tools and new ways of thinking about things to help you navigate this crazy online world.
And most importantly, remember that the most important connection is the one you have with yourself. So log off every once in a while, focus on what really matters, and take care of your mind and heart. Until next time, keep exploring and keep asking.